event every year, our Super Bowl, right? And whatever that's going to be, if it's a game show, if it's going to be something else, I do feel like the sentiment has completely swung from back when people were just kind of tired of it.
One thing I will say, and a question I have for you in that regard is, you're starting to see an uprising of a lot of BIPOC-oriented conventions like DreamCon, BlurCon, things of that nature. And as we know, and especially in American culture and a lot of the different instances through the world, usually whatever the brown and black people are on is what becomes the standard and becomes the trendy thing. Do you feel like that the avenue that E3 or a lot of those outdated gaming conventions are going to take is kind of investing more into these black-oriented things? We know, like with DreamCon, there was I think Nintendo was a sponsor, and like some of those legendary gaming studios and companies that are part of it. I think seeing, at least that's my theory, is that that's the route things are going to go. You're starting to see the uprising and all these different content creators going there, and they're bringing their communities there. It is just, it's one easy promotion in a way that I just feel like I think that's the direction things are going.
Yeah, I honestly, before I let you go on that, I think that the game community is actually trying to kind of figure that out to themselves, because I think initially they had oh yeah, we don't necessarily need E3 because we're gonna showcase our stuff ourselves, but then you see the overall climate of gaming has changed dramatically in that time. It's so much more difficult to actually promote a game to multiple people because you have less places where the general attention of the gaming world is focused at. Pretty much right now, the only unless it's Evo or the video game awards, the overall attention of the video game community is so fractured now that it's really difficult to really say okay, this is where I'm gonna place this piece of content to make sure that it's seen by the maximum amount of people. What do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I know we give you a lot to chew on.
A lot to chew on there. I'm a good chewer. So, but no, I think that, hey, yo, said big pause. Hold on. No, don't do me. But I think that my initial thoughts to that is, I think that if we just talk about, I think video games right now is all about, video games are becoming pop culture. And, they always had been pop culture, but now with social media being so prominent as it is, and in the bite-sized social media, with Reels and things, it's so much easier to just get that out and just churn and get content moving really quickly. And so all of pop culture, what we see is, in America at least, which reverberates across the globe, what do we see dominating pop culture most times? It's usually black creators. Whether that's dancing, whether that's hip hop, fashion, sports, black creators are typically the ones who are at the forefront, the tip of the spear. And so we're seeing that now with, I think, anime and video games and the content creation with that. Obviously, some of the most prominent creators in that space right now are RDC World, and I think that Mark and his team and what they do so well is being just like your best friend, like the homie that you just kind of shoot the shit with, talking about anime and games, and in a matter of speaking, that's what they do, but they make it. They make it into content. And as the years gone by, they started blending in the things that they were naturally good at. Humor, comedy, roasting, these things that, that are just embedded within popular culture because of their innate interest within the space of anime and comics, in video games. Those things start to get elevated. And so now we're seeing black creators sort of, taking that wave and really running with it and just kind of opening doors for a lot of folks, black, brown, white, whatever color you are, because it's becoming cool in so many ways. And so I think that's what I have to say as far as where where we are at. But as far as where we're going, I think that the future is bright for many different creators to express themselves, not just within the space of content creating in, like, say, the conventional way we're seeing within YouTube, TikToks or any, videos, Twitch, streaming. But now we're starting to see, and I saw, Otis having a conversation with a young man who stopped at his booth today, talking about, creating comics, because Blurred, they create comics. And so we're seeing artists doing their thing. You have a comic. These sorts of things are now being expressed at every level, granular level. Yesterday, I met with Tony, who had created BPM Boy. It was one of the indie games that I was covering that I'm reviewing, and I was learning a little bit about Tony. And Tony's a black man. He was there with his son Logan, and what struck me about the game, immediately was the style. It just looked like Fusion Frenzy, like that old Xbox game, and Monkey Ball just had a baby. And as I was talking to Tony, I'm like, man, he'd been heavy in the game for a minute. Black developer. Right. And then, he told me that he had worked, Crystal Dynamics. He worked on Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, which is one of my favorites all time. Yeah, like he had worked on that. He had worked on all these, he just was kind of naming all these games that he had a hand in. And I'm sitting here like, hey, yo, you got this story that I would love to share. It's because, black game developers have been in the business for a minute. And again, we're talking about these sort of less prominent roles within the space, but are just as important. And now that's where I think the next step, as far as where we're going, is that we're going to start seeing more black and brown folks enter these spaces, because those are becoming more well known in those spaces. And it's people like you guys who are elevating that, letting people know, this is what else you can do. And I think that next generation of folks who are coming in there are going to really be inspired by those sorts of stories and being enabled in that way.
See, the anarchist in me wants to see the system crumble. And I say that for the fact of we interviewed a guy named Ben from Maker Olivia. I probably killed his last name, but forgive me, Ben. He was one of the game developers for the Harry Potter Legacy game that came out recently. And he was talking about the dilemma he had of being a queer BIPOC person and working with a lot of the controversy surrounding that franchise and J.K. Rowling. And I'm like, I see dudes like that where you're so talented and you have gone through these moral dilemmas to feed yourself. I'm like, I want to see you branch out and do your own thing so bad. Yeah. And a part of that too was with the SAG After Strike. I'm like, man, all these talented people that are responsible for these millions of dollars and these great projects being written and created, I wish you guys would just band together and do your own thing. And I know it'd be a little difficult to market it in certain ways too, because you don't have that system behind you. But man, I'm all fan of just let everything else fall, because these studios, these production companies, they just don't have passion and don't let these people that are passionate about what they do really showcase that passion a lot. It starts to get formulaic, and you're seeing that with all these games that are releasing that are unfinished, or all kinds of DLC that probably could have been in the games, not in the game. But it's the running trend that you're seeing through all different types of games of issues that we're having.
No, yeah, that's fire. I'm sorry, but no, I think honestly we're already in the process of seeing the system crumble to a degree. Because I mean, the perception around AAA games has shifted massively, right?
Three generations, black nerd soldiers, podcast snipers trying to pop culture.